everyone who's joined us here. Thank you so much for taking the time out and for being part of this insightful conversation, because I'm sure it's going to be. And as you know, we're trying to create awareness about visual merchandising on this platform that is Ace of Space, and create a space for people from the retail industry, students who want to get into visual merchandising, and even professional visual merchandisers, all of us to come together and create this community and kind of build an awareness about this concept, because it is probably one of the most understated, misunderstood to an extent, idea or part of retail. It doesn't get the credit that it deserves. And maybe what is happening is a lot of people don't really know or understand the importance of visual merchandising in a retail setup. It is really, really, really important. And I'm sure by the end of this conversation, you guys will, understand what we're trying to say and why we're trying to emphasize this. So without any further ado, please welcome Nidhi Tapase, our first guest for our very first Insta Live session. And I'll say no more. Nidhi, please take over.
So hello everyone. Let me do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Nidhi Tapase. I am somebody who's worked as a visual merchandiser for the past 17 plus years, I would say. Don't know the exact count anymore, completely lost count. But pretty much 17 years in the luxury retail industry. And currently I'm working with Louis Vuitton as the VM manager for India. Basically, I've studied commerce and advertising in college. So let me put it out there, like I have no master's degree. I haven't done any fashion course or any of that. I'm an advertising student. I was working with an ad firm before my first big break in a luxury, international luxury brand. And I feel like at that point, the transition, it's something that I always wanted to do. And the transition was so effortless for me because marketing and advertising and visual merchandising pretty much share the same ethos, so to say, right? The concept is the same. It's about product placement. It's about getting your product to the end consumer and doing it in the most optimal manner. And I feel like my education in marketing and advertising, it kind of helped me in such a big way with VM, even though I didn't have a fashion degree and I didn't go to fashion school. I applied that logic into work. And yeah, I mean, this is something, again, it's a question that we get asked often, how should we do this, and how do we get into a big brand, and I want to do this and I want to do that. Honestly, the answer is really simple. You have to work really hard. You have to start at the bottom and make your way to the top. There's no shortcuts, right? There is.
Yes.
You can have an amazing degree. You can have a management degree from a really fancy business school. But honestly, when it comes to retail and when it comes to specialized fields like VM, you need to work and get the experience in first. And that's how you grow. You have to grow on the job.
Right. So, guys, students who are probably listening to us and watching this, so neither Nidhi nor me actually have any formal training in visual merchandising. We didn't really study it because back in those days, there weren't very, very good courses. And honestly, the entire concept of VM was very, very new when we started off. So, and there were no courses as such on it. But today, there are a lot of lovely courses that are happening across India and abroad. If you really want to go study abroad, there are a lot of great visual merchandising courses. But having said that, even after you do your VM course, you need to work on the shop floor. Okay, I'm coming back to that because that is important. Just spend do a 6 months internship or something, or maybe 3 months internship on the shop floor, work with product, work with client, and it'll really, really benefit you. So I hope this answers a lot of your questions, the frequently asked question, how do we become VM? I hope this answers some of it at least. And if you have more questions, please don't be afraid to drop them in the comments, and we'll answer them at the end of the session before we close. So now moving on from how to become a VM to understanding what VM actually is and what impact VM has on a retail environment. So we thought we'd look at understanding that both in the Indian market and in the international market. So we'll start off with Nidhi. Maybe you can run us through what exactly the impact, how strong an impact VM has on a retail setup, and then we can start looking into the Indian market after that.
I mean, of course, visual merchandising is directly impactful on the business of any retail setup. VM, if you ask me how I would describe VM, it's basically a tool that creates desire even before the need arises, right? So VM is not just catering to one's need, it is in fact to build the desire for something you don't even actually need. It's sad, but this is the truth of our job. That's how you make, your business successful.
Yeah.
um, because let's be honest, this is not a need-based thing. This is about it's about a lifestyle. It's about desirability, and visual merchandising directly impacts that. um, and if I can also take a moment to quote, an author that I once read a book on retail about. His name is Paul Mazur, and he spoke about and he coined this phrase, the 5 R's of product merchandising. And I just jotted it down because it's something I wanted to share. So product merchandising basically comprises of 5 R's. It's about the right merchandise in the right quantities at the right price and in the right time at the right place. So these are the 5 R's that he coined. And I think I felt like adding a sixth one to it, which is presented also in the right way. We often forget that while it is
Right.
important to have, yeah, presentation is key. While it is, and this was written back in 1927.
Yeah.
Of course, at that point, maybe the impact of VM was not as much. It was still very new.
Yeah.
But as we've evolved as a market, and over the years, we've noticed how important first impressions are, and how important
Yeah.
uh, displays, windows, the things that you see, all your senses. Those are so key to your experience in a retail environment, and VM taps into all of those
Yeah.
senses, and that's why it's so important for VM to be super successful. And in an international market, I think today, if we look at some of the players who are really killing it in the VM scene, I think personal favorite for me, of course, is Louis Vuitton. As I'm representing the brand, and honestly, it has been a dream of mine to work with them because I've been such a fan of their windows growing up, and it's something that I always aspired. The other brand is Dior. If you guys have been like, observers of what Dior has been doing recently, globally, also in India, of course, there was a huge show. I think we all know about this. Dior has been doing some fantastic pop-ups, and even their
Yeah.
pop-up parrots that they did for Christmas. It was absolutely stunning. It was just something that was spectacularly all about VM, and that is something that people will remember this for years and years to come. They'll remember the image of that store, the feeling, and those pictures will stay, and they pretty much went viral at that time. And also, like, some of these like super cool niche brands like Ten Corso Como in Milan. There was Colette in Paris, and also there's like all of these cool niche brands that you see in Japan that
Yeah.
you may not even, if you have the privilege of visiting, of course, but if you even see them through Instagram, it's so inspirational. It really creates that vibe and that desirability, and it really sells a certain lifestyle through just product presentation.
Yeah.
And I think that is really when you've made it, right?
Yeah.
And then vis-a-vis, let's talk about like the Indian scenario in retail. What's very interesting to also know is retail in India contributes to 10% of our like GDP in the country.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, it's obviously a super important part of business in our country, and it's an extremely like attractive country for all retailers
Yeah.
across the globe.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to come in. India is going to be the next big thing when it comes to retail, and of course, goes without saying, the way we present our stores and the way they look,
Yeah.
that is going to be everything in the future. It's only going to go up, like it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah.
And our local designers and luxury retailers as well, they're taking their stores to the next level. If very recently Sabyasachi opened his store in Bombay. Oh my god, it went viral, of course,
Yeah.
for the reason, and specifically for the reason, of course, his clothes are beautiful and you cannot stop talking about that, his jewelry and clothes, but the way the store display is done,
Yeah. Yeah.
that is
It is mind
the
blowing. It actually is. It
I
is.
mean, that is really the winner there. Like, it's the store display, and he does it time and time again. He sells his story through his stores, and the store is like that whole experience. You feel like you're part of Sabyasachi's world, and that's again, that is where you've made a win when it comes to VM. And then there are also some other brands who I personally feel are doing really well locally, luxury brands, of course. There's Her Story, which is a jewelry brand, and they work with local artisans and students from fashion, like from design schools. And they're doing some really, really good work. Their presentation is fantastic. It's almost at par with like global, fine jewelry brands. So that's one to look out for. And there was a recent window that Rusha Shroff did for Hermes. I know this is
I was
Hermes, it's not a local brand.
actually that was going to be my
Yeah,
brand.
Shad is somebody, I have followed very keenly over the years, and his work is, I'm a huge fan of it. Big shout out to him if he ever sees this. Of course, his work at NMACC as well that he did in in partnership with Hamish was amazing. But his recent window at Hermes, the concept that he has created, and the delivery, the production, the way the whole like window looks, it's like an X-ray of a bag with contents inside it. It is, it's just beautiful. I mean, I loved it, and that is when you really feel like, oh my god, we are doing, we are there, we're getting there. If we're not already there, but we're on the right path. So yeah, I think really good things to look forward to, and more so with like the malls opening up, new brands coming up. Um, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's very simple, right? Break it down. Like when we think of something in our minds, we think in images, not in words. Think in picture. When we have a memory in our if we have a perfume reminds us of something. It's always in a picture. It's never in words. And I think that is the best way to kind of explain the importance of visual merchandising in a retail setup. Because when your client walks into a store, you want them to go back remembering the store, and they will remember how the store looked, how the store smelled, what colors the store had, and all that boils down to visual merchandising. That will be key in bringing back your customer to the store, even if it is a brand that is well known, and more so for a brand that is not established, that is just building itself up.
Yeah.
To create that image, a positive, beautiful looking memory in your client's head, that is the job of visual merchandising, and your client will definitely come back. I think that is the best way that I could explain VM and its importance in a retail setup. And window displays, I think the standard of visual merchandising has improved greatly over the past few years in India, because we've had so many new brands coming in, and the exposure on social media has made people more aware about art, about aesthetics, about the importance of art and aesthetics. So, and I think seeing that, from when we started off like 2 decades ago almost, to where it is right now, we see a lot more appealing window displays. We see people paying attention, like brands paying attention to the cleanliness and the hygiene of their windows, and not just the way it looks. I would say we still have a long way to go in India.
Yeah.
Like, a very long way to go. We are slightly behind than the international market, like in Europe and the US. But I think we're, like you said, heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we need more visual merchandisers to develop their skills and bring the importance and give the importance that VM deserves in a retail setup. But yeah, definitely. And I think for me, if I had to choose a brand, I'd go for this very local brand in Bombay called Jade by Monica and Karan on Pedder Road. So they don't have like very out of this world window displays, but they have very pretty window displays. They
Product
take
in their windows.
exactly, like what I like about them is that every other time I pass their window, it's something new, and it may not be larger than life, but it is nice to look at. You can tell that they're taking an effort to put into their visual merchandising, and for me, that is like half the battle won. When someone is taking effort to create a good window display, it's half the battle done. So yeah, so students and visual merchandisers listening to us, like, keep going, keep doing the right thing. push VM, make it a platform that gets the recognition that it deserves in a retail setup. And so moving on to the next.
Should we take questions from